Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, first chapter. So text number 16 till 19 I have been told to speak. So I will read 16 till 18 first, and then together we can chant text number 19. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakula Sahadevascha Sughoṣa Manipushpakau Kasyascha Parameshvasa Sikandi Cha Maharataha Dristadumna Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitaha Drupado Drupadeyascha Sarvascha Pṛthivīpate Subhadrascha Mahabaho Sankandarmuda Pritak Pritak. Translation. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijay, and Nakul and Sahadev blew the Sughoṣa and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Sikandi, Drishtadyumna Virat, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupa, the son of Draupadi, and the others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport. Sanjaya informed King Dhṛtarāṣṭra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in their great battle. Beginning with the grandsire Bhīṣma down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world, all were present there and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhṛtarāṣṭra because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. Text number 19. Sa ghoṣaḥ dhārtarāṣṭrāṇāṁ hṛdayāni vyadārayat nabhaś pṛthivīṁ caiva tumulo bhyanunādayan sa that ghoṣa vibration dhārtarāṣṭrāṇām of the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra hṛdayāni hearts, vyadārayat shattered, nabhaḥ the sky, cha also, pṛthivīṁ the surface of the earth, cha also, eva certainly, tumulaḥ uproarious, abhyanunādayan resounding. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra. When Bhīṣma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of the Pāṇḍavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned. But in this verse it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra were shattered by the sounds vibrated by the Pāṇḍavas party. This is due to the Pāṇḍavas and their confidence in Lord Kṛṣṇa. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānanjana salakaya chakṣuranmritam yanam tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Sri Chaitanya manobhistam sthapitam yena bhutale Sayam rupa kadamayam dadati sabadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yudhapada Kamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakandvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Hevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is guiding the Pāṇḍavas. Although he is the Supreme Lord, but he is taking the very humble position, becoming the chariot driver of his devotee Arjuna. As we know, to be a driver, so it is not a superior position. So driver means usually the servant. So rich people, they have a driver, they may have a car, 2 cars. And then they are not driving, but they have driver. So Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is taking such a humble position and becoming the chariot driver of his devotee, Arjuna. But that doesn't diminish his position as a Supreme Lord. That doesn't diminish his glory. And therefore we can see, as explained here, in the Purport by Srila Prabhupada, and from the verses we can see when Krishna is blowing the conch shell, everyone was very much terrified, especially on the opposite side. The Kauravas, whereas the devotees, they were enlivened. Similarly also, when the devotees of Krishna, the Pāṇḍavas, are blowing their conch shell, that was also terrific for the enemy. And Prabhupada is explaining because they were confident. Because Krishna was on their side and Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And on the opposite side, when they were blowing the conch shell, so certainly blowing the conch shell, even when we do artik, we blow the conch shell, and actually it is a very auspicious sound, the sound of the conch shell. And it is beautiful sound. And especially if the big conch shell is there, then there's a big sound. If a small conch shell is there, then the sound is less. So they all had big conch shells and there was a big sound. But when Dhṛtarāṣṭra's sons were blowing theirs, there was no shattering the heart of the Pāṇḍavas. Just like when we hear the conch shell blowing, So, it is not shattering our hearts. But actually, in the service of the Lord, the devotees are blowing the conch shell and is giving pleasure to the devotees, to the Lord, to the devotees. And everyone becomes enlivened because the artik is going to be performed for the Lord. But here, of course, so that is actually before before the artik, which is auspicious, and at the end the conch shell is blown. And even during religious ceremonies, marriage ceremony, other ceremonies also, the conch shell is blown because it is considered auspicious. So it is the beginning of an auspicious activity. And if it is blown at the end, that is the conclusion of the auspicious activity. So war, of course, of fighting, that means there will be blood there. And so for one side it will be auspicious, and for the other side it will not be so auspicious. For those who are winning, conquering, so it will be auspicious. For the others, it is a defeat. So the Pāṇḍavas, they were confident because Krishna was on their side, the Supreme Lord. Therefore, when they are blowing the conch shell, it was with great enthusiasm. And then the spiritual power is there. So the external energy is there and the internal energy is there. The internal energy, that is Krishna's energy. Of course, the external energy is also Krishna's energy ultimately. But it is the inferior energy. Paraprakriti and aparaprakriti. So the inferior and superior energy. So the devotees are transcendently situated. They are under the shelter of the internal energy, the superior energy. Whereas materialistic persons are under the influence of the external energy. So the internal, the superior energy is more powerful than the external energy. So the Pāṇḍavas, they were fortunate, and they were surrendered to Krishna. So Krishna was going to protect them. And so therefore, it was indicated that they will be victorious right from the beginning. So it is indicated here. But Dhṛtarāṣṭra and his sons, so Dhṛtarāṣṭra was materially speaking blind, he could not see. But even spiritually speaking, so he was bewildered. And so his sons, they were able to see, materially speaking, but spiritually speaking, they were blind. And they were acting in unfavorable ways. But of course, in the material world, sometimes because the modes of material nature are there, so sometimes mode of goodness is prevalent, sometimes mode of passion, and sometimes mode of ignorance. That we can see on a daily basis, the modes of material nature are there. Morning time is the mode of goodness, noon time is passion, evening and night time is mode of ignorance. But the devotees, they are transcendently situated. Any time, morning, noon or evening, they are transcendental. They are properly situated. They are successful. Whereas materialistic persons in the morning time, even though the mode of goodness is there, but if they are not dedicated to the Supreme Lord, then they're still in ignorance, even in morning time. And therefore usually they get up late. And then after getting up, they are not engaged in spiritual activities, but material activities. So, the devotees of Krishna, they're engaged in auspicious activities, and they will be successful in their endeavors. Although sometimes there may be some difficulty, but by the mercy of the Lord, the devotees, they can overcome all difficulties. So like the Pāṇḍavas also, they were surrendered to Krishna, and although they were surrendered to Krishna, but still they had to undergo difficulties before this battle here. Krishna was always on their side. Krishna was with them, they were with Krishna. But they had to undergo so many difficulties, because it is the nature of this material world. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It is full of misery and is impermanent. Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi. Birth, death, old age and disease. That is unavoidable. One who has taken birth, for him death is certain. And for one who is dying, for him then there will be birth. And so, that is miserable ultimately, material existence. Right from taking birth, very difficult situation. The child is coming out of the womb. It is very painful for the mother and the child. So much so that the mother will think, I will never again become pregnant, because it is so painful. But then due to the influence of the illusory energy, after sometimes it is forgotten, and again the woman becomes pregnant. And again the same suffering is there. And then giving up this body, that is painful also. Especially if one is attached to the body, it is more painful. And if one is sick, disease is there, cold or whatever it is painful. Old age also, difficult situation. When one is young, one can do more things. Intelligence is sharp and the memory is better, but in old age everything is deteriorating. It is painful situation. But still the materialistic person is thinking, well, everything is all right. Because actually by nature the jiva is eternal and blissful. So therefore even in conditioned life, the jiva, the embodied being, is trying to live eternally and not thinking that they will leave this world. And they try to be happy always, seeking happiness. It is natural. But just like a fish out of water cannot be happy, so the living entity, if he is not engaged in the devotional service, in the ocean of love, of Godhead, then he will not be happy. Not possible. At any time. Only some happiness is there which is flickering in the material world. And the more one is in the mode of goodness, the more one will be actually satisfied. But one cannot be always in the mode of goodness, and therefore one cannot always be satisfied in the material world. But as a devotee, of course the pure devotees, they are always transcendently situated and they feel in transcendental pleasure. Even though great difficulties will be there in this material world. But if they take shelter of Krishna, then they have nothing to fear, as Purport is saying, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. And even though some difficulties are there, calamities are there, To some extent they are affected, but they know very well that it is only temporary situation. And because they are engaged in the devotional service, they will feel some happiness, even in their greatest difficulties. So the Pāṇḍavas here, they had to undergo so many difficulties, but because they were surrendered to Krishna, they were satisfied. Even though they were in exile for many years, although they were supposed to be the kings, but they were in exile, but they accepted that. Although Krishna was with them, but they accepted this as the will of the Lord. And sometimes we do not know exactly what is Krishna's plan. But if one is surrendering to Krishna, accepting his guidance, then one is properly situated. And everything ultimately is auspicious. Even in the beginning it may not look like in certain situations. But the outcome is always auspicious, the outcome is always good for the devotee. So the Pāṇḍavas had to undergo so many difficulties, but then here the last difficulty or the ultimate was this war with the Kauravas. And war means, fighting means people will die. That is certain. And both the parties, they knew that many of us will die. But it was necessary, it was destined to be so, because there were so many irreligious people, so that was a great burden for the earth, and therefore the difficulty had to come. So in this way here, in the form of this big war, and then people had to die. But those who are surrendered to Krishna, they're successful. Even though some of them, on the Pāṇḍava side, they were righteous, but still they had to also give up this body. Like Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu. He was just 16 years old, but he was destined to die. So, but if one is fighting for the right cause, then even if it will end in such a way as giving up the body, but then in the next life he will be able to be properly situated again and feel also the mercy of the Lord. Well, that's not a conch shell, that's a phone. Anyhow, what to do? I thought it's on silent, but still. Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, the Pāṇḍavas, ultimately they were successful. And that was indicated here by the conch shell, blowing of the conch shell. And at the end, so after 18 days, so many on both sides died. But victory was there for Arjuna and the Pāṇḍavas. And then they were ultimately again enthroned. Dhṛtarāṣṭra was there as the emperor. And then there was some peace and some prosperity there. So in this material world, always the difficulties will be there, even for the devotee. It is not that if we are surrendering to Krishna, that everything will be nice and wonderful. Although it is, from one point of view, everything will be nice and wonderful, but difficulties will be there. And then still the devotees also getting sick, and just like there was World War I and World War II, And then many people are dying, even devotees also. And even now this pandemic, and it is a difficult situation for everyone, for the devotees also. But by surrendering to Krishna, we are protected, and ultimately we'll be successful, even though even some devotees also dying. That is natural, because everyone has to give up the body, sooner or later. But we simply have to do our duty, and we have to act for the satisfaction of Krishna. Then we'll be successful. Of this there is no doubt. And then one can be peaceful and feel some transcendental pleasure, even though so many difficulties are there. So that we can see in the lives of the devotees, not only the Pāṇḍavas, but even when Krishna was in Braj, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Baba, the gopis, the greatest of the devotees of the Lord. But they also had to undergo so many tribulations, so many difficulties, so many demons were coming and causing difficulties and so much anxiety to Mother Yashoda and to the gopis. Whirlwind, different demons were there, and whirlwind was there one time, Tufan, carrying Krishna up in the sky, and Mother Yashoda was very much perturbed. But then Krishna, he killed all these demons. And so they were always, then again, of course, pacified, relieved. But when the different demons came, then everyone was in anxiety and scared. But Krishna then protected them, killed all the demons, and there was relief. But even when Krishna is simply going out to the pasturing grounds with the friends, with the cows and the calves, then Mother Yashoda, she's feeling so much separation. And also some anxieties there, transcendental anxiety, transcendental feeling of sadness and unhappiness and separation. She's afraid, I hope nothing will happen to my child, to Krishna. Although he's the Supreme Lord, nothing can happen to him. But because she has this parental affection, motherly affection for Krishna, so she becomes anxious, hoping that nothing will happen to him. And then she's sad also that Krishna is not with me. But then, because she's engaged in devotional activities, whatever she's doing for Krishna's pleasure. In the house, cleaning the house, churning butter, to make ghee or yogurt first and then ghee. And then while doing that, she's glorifying Krishna. And then, so she feels some satisfaction, some relief of the transcendental distress or anxiety. So emotions are there, and they're coming and going, different emotions. But Krishna has to be in the center. And then in happiness or in distress, in pain, or when there's pain or pleasure, whatever the situation is there. If one is in poverty-stricken position or well-to-do, if Krishna is in the center, then everything is fine. But if Krishna is not in the center, even if you are rich, then still there will be some anxiety, some difficulty there. Then one will think, and one will be concerned, I hope nobody will steal my money. So Krishna has to be in the center, and everything is fine. Even in the greatest difficulty, the devotee will feel some solace, and he will understand that Krishna has a plan. So he can tolerate the situation, and he can do his duty. And he's depending on Krishna. And if he's successful, then he will usually thank the Supreme Lord, and he will see it as Krishna's mercy. If he's not successful, he will not blame Krishna, but he will see, oh, it is just my misfortune. But nevertheless, I will continue with my service, and I will see that it's Krishna's mercy if things are not working out. But it is, of course, ultimately for my benefit, whatever is happening. So the devotees, they have faith, full faith in Krishna. They're depending on Krishna. And therefore they will be always, ultimately, they will be successful. And the greatest success ultimately is to become free from the three modes of material nature, to be established on the transcendental plane, realizing one's constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna, realizing one's eternal relationship with Krishna as a friend, or in parental affection or conjugal relationship. So that is the goal, actually, to establish our relationship with Krishna, eternal relationship. So by constantly being engaged in devotional service, depending on Krishna, doing one's devotional service, our duties, and praying also for the mercy of Hari Guru Vaishnav, then one will be successful. Any questions so far? No question?
Yes, can I ask?
Yes.
So here in this sloka, they have mentioned that both sides blew their conchshells.
Yes.
So Pandavas blowing, while Krishna is with them, so why do they blow their conchshells? Oh, in the side of Kauravas there were no Krishna, so they also blew the conchshells.
Yes.
And in the Pandav side, Krishna was there. Krishna was with Pandavas. So why do they blow the conchshells?
Because all the warriors, they have a conch shell. All of them, they have their own conch shell. Like, for example, they have their own weapons. All the warriors, they have whatever weapons they have, the sword or bow and arrow, everyone. So similarly, everyone is a conch shell. And they are on their chariot, the powerful archers, they have the powerful warriors, they have their own chariot.
In the earlier sloka,
Yes.
the
Yes.
gentleman has spoken that the conchshell represent the symbol of Lord Kṛṣṇa.
No. It's not, no. Krishna has his conch shell, but others also have their conch shell, not only Krishna.
While Bhīṣma blew the conchshell, in the purport it has been mentioned that he is blowing the conchshell, but he knows that it belongs to Krishna.
No, the conch shell doesn't belong to Krishna. Bhīṣma has his own conch shell. Everyone they have their conch shell. And even the name is given of the different conch shells.
Yes, different conchshells.
Yes.
Krishna has also his conchshell. Lord Krishna
Yes.
has his conchshell. But Bhīṣma is speaking, blowing his conchshell signifies that victory is not going to be the of Kuru side, because conchshell belongs to the Krishna's, Vishnu's, Lord Vishnu's symbol.
Yeah, that is, yes, ultimately that is true.
Yeah,
That the Vishnu, he has a conch shell, that is a symbol.
and Bhīṣma is blowing the conchshell.
Yeah, but you see there are two kinds of conch shell also. Transcendental conch shell in the spiritual world. And only Vishnu has a conch shell. But then at the same time in the material world there are so many conch shell. That is there, two types of conch shell. One is transcendental, and that only Krishna, Vishnu has. Krishna is his conch shell, and that belongs to Krishna, and Vishnu has his also, the different Vishnu, they have the conch shell. That is one kind of transcendental conch shell. But then in the material world, there are also conch shell, but these are not transcendental. Yeah, like the Kauravas, they have their conch shell, but then the Pāṇḍavas, they are engaged in devotional service, and then actually that becomes also transcendental. Yeah. Transcendental, yeah. Because they are engaged in Krishna service. Yes. Like if you use something in Krishna service, then it becomes transcendental. If it is not engaged in Krishna service, then it is material. That is the point.
Bhīṣma is not using the counsel in the service of Lord Kṛṣṇa.
But actually Bhīṣma's position is a little different. Yeah. Because actually he was a great devotee of Krishna also. He's known as Mahajan, a great personality. But due to circumstances, because he took a vow that I will stay till the end of my life in Hastinapura and I will protect Hastinapura. That was his duty, and so although the Kauravas, they came to power and they drove the Pāṇḍavas out of Hastinapura by unfair means, but because he was obliged, because he took a vow that I will stay in Hastinapura till the end of my life, so therefore he was obliged to be with Kauravas, although he knew that they are not righteous, and they are against Krishna, they are against the Pāṇḍavas. But he was doing his duty, and he was trying also to tell Duryodhana to go to the right path. But he was not listening. And also, although Bhīṣma was extremely powerful, intelligent, but what to do? If somebody is not listening to the superior, then sometimes the superior, what he can do? He can speak, or he can chastise, but then at some point then he just has to accept it also, as it is. So, because after all, Duryodhana and the others, his brothers, they were sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, so who was the king, because, first Pandu, so he left. Although Dhṛtarāṣṭra was there and he was the eldest son, he was supposed to be the king, but because he was blind, the Pandu, he became the king. But then he left the body. And then Dhṛtarāṣṭra, although he was blind, he was there as the king, but then he had to then give the kingdom to...
Can I ask one more, maybe a little bit doubtful, again
Yeah.
the question is not clear. Bhīṣma knows that Lord Kṛṣṇa is the supreme.
Yes.
And counsels should be used in the service of the Lord Kṛṣṇa.
Yes.
And he was Mahajan. Then why he used the concept and why he was doing the thing against the Lord Kṛṣṇa?
No, he was not doing against Lord Kṛṣṇa. He was doing his duty. Bhīṣma was doing his duty, and he knew actually that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and the Pāṇḍavas are the devotees, and he knew that ultimately we will lose, because Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He knew, but he had to do his duty. So his duty was there to protect Hastinapura. And although the Kauravas were against the Pāṇḍavas, so therefore they were doomed. And he knew that also, and he tried to tell them that they should be respectful to the Pāṇḍavas, but they were not listening. But he had to do his duty. And that was, he had to fight, although it was not on the right side, but he had to fight. It was his duty as being one of the leaders of Hastinapura. And so then he was fighting, and because it is his duty, so he's trying his best, and then even so shooting arrows towards Arjun in the fight, and even towards Krishna. But because he had love, so he was shooting his arrows with love. And then Krishna, he was accepting them. But because he knew that Bhīṣma Deva had love, so he was feeling just like he's offering flowers to me, showering flowers upon me. Like the demigods are showering flowers upon Krishna. And so Bhīṣma Deva also, although there were arrows, but he was shooting them with love towards Krishna. So that is known as vyadārayat. So the relationship is there, I'm servant of Krishna, but now due to circumstances I have to fight against Krishna. And he knew Krishna cannot be killed. But he was doing his duty and he was shooting his arrow with love.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so, of course, then we know that ultimately he was defeated because he had to be defeated, but because he was so powerful and because he was actually a righteous person, a great personality, Mahajan, so he was able to leave the body when he wanted. So it is mentioned that it is more auspicious to leave the body in the Uttarayan, when the sun is going towards the northern side of the hemisphere. So, but he was wounded, but he was not dead. And then he was there on a bed of arrows, and he was waiting for the sun to go from the Dakshinayan to the Uttarayan, and then he left the body.
Can I ask one more?
Yes.
So, while Bhīṣma, sorry to...
No problem, sure.
While Bhīṣma knows that Krishna is there,
Yes.
Krishna's presence is more important, more importance than the Uttarayan and the chant, or what is the value of Uttarayan and the chant while Krishna is there, not Supreme Lord
Yes,
is there?
yes.
What is the sense of going to Uttarayan?
Yes, that is true. Yeah. Ultimately it is true. If Krishna is there, if one is dying in front of Krishna, it can be any time. That is true. Yeah. But it is just in general, just like, for example, according to Vastu Shastra. So certain things are there. It is good to have the kitchen in the house in the south east direction. The kitchen Agniko should be there. Yes.
So I should face always towards the Lord Krishna.
Yes.
Whether it is south or north.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That is true. No. Yes. But you see, for example, when we are in the material world, we try to follow rules and regulations also. That we have to do. Just like, for example, you go to the city and then a red light is there and green light is there. So we have to follow that. We follow. If it is green, then we cross the road. Because you have many cars, if it is red, and the cars are going and you think, why, I just remember Krishna. And you cross the road, then you'll be run over. Then still you have to see and you wait. Although Krishna is with you, you may see Krishna before you. Okay, I don't care for the red light, I'm with Krishna. But still now you have to follow some rules and regulations, like that. But if there are no cars there, if it is red light, then you can cross, no problem. So we have to follow some rules and regulations, but Krishna is in the center and we depend on Krishna. We don't depend on astrology, but we take the help of astrology. Just like if there's a red light, you stop and you don't cross the road. Even though you are with Krishna, Krishna is with you. But the red light is there, okay, it's better to stop.
But PM is coming, suppose PM is coming.
If the PM is coming,
no red light.
then no red light, no.
He's the Mahajan, so there should be no red light or green light.
Yeah, if you're Mahajan, then it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, Modi is a Mahajan, yeah, great personality, so he doesn't have to look for the light. Yeah. But if you're not in such a position, you have to follow that. Yeah, okay. Yes.
Here, I want to know more about confidence in Lord Krishna.
Confidence,
like, yes,
yeah.
Like he said, all fear will go and everything, nothing is there in the midst of greatest calamity.
Yes.
But still sometimes we will get fearful or something. How to increase this kind of confidence in Lord Krishna?
Yes. Well, it is a matter of purity. And the more one is pure and advanced, the more one will have confidence. That is Vishwas, faith. If you are a pure devotee, has Driya Vishwas, he has strong faith and confidence that Krishna will always protect me. But if one is not yet so advanced, then sometimes he will be shaken if there is some problem. Oh, why this is happening to me? I'm serving Krishna, still have so many difficulties. Because his faith is not very strong, his confidence is not very strong. So, but in the beginning it is natural that one does not have full faith or confidence, even though one wants. But if one is under modes of material nature, then one cannot be truly humble, one cannot be truly confident, and one cannot be truly surrendered. It is partial. But if one is free from the modes of material nature, then it will be true humility, pakva dainatva, a ripe humility, and then it will be full confidence, strong faith, driya vishwas, and then will be purna sharanagati, full surrender. In the beginning we may go to the temple, go mangalatik, and in this way one is surrendered to some extent. But if one is on the modes of material nature, the surrender is not complete, it is partial. So we just simply one has to continue engaging in devotional service, and then the humility will be more ripe, the confidence will become more strong, and the surrender will be more complete. So you just have to be patient. Utsa nishchay dhārtarāṣṭra tatta karma pavatanat sangatyaga sato vrite sadbhir bhaktir prasiddhati. You have to be always enthusiastic, despite all difficulties. You have to be fixed. I have to attain the goal. I have to be transcendently situated. And then you have to be patient. We want to become pure immediately. And we want to become advanced or successful immediately. But we have to be patient also. It will take time. But tatta karma parvatanat, but one has to be constantly engaged in devotional activities with body, mind and words. And then sangat tyagat, so we have to give up unwanted association, unfavorable activities or situations. And then satovrite, one has to be in good association with the devotees who are more advanced. Satovrite, the sajatiya bhaktas, the devotees who have, in our, of course, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, so the devotees who are surrendered to Mahaprabhu and Krishna, who have the proper understanding, and so we associate with these devotees, and then it will be easier to advance. It will be easier to remain transcendently situated. So, like that. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
I came late, so you read only the 16 to 18.
Yes, and then 19 also.
19 also.
Yes.
Then 19 means I have two questions. In this first 16 to 18 purport, Sanjaya informed King Dhṛtarāṣṭra very tactfully, his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons to the kingdom. That is right.
Yes.
Okay. That is at the time of presence of Krishna. It's the time Krishna is present.
Yes.
So still Sanjaya informed king, no, but he is here translated as tactfully.
Yes.
But mostly we Vaishnavas, if I make any problem, Vaishnava directly chastise me, to correct me. Straightforward, face to face.
Yes.
Why he is tactfully?
Well, we have to see the position. No. Like for example, Dhṛtarāṣṭra. So he was the king, and Sanjay is his servant, his secretary, his subordinate position. So, I mean, we have to be straightforward, but for example, to the superior, you cannot tell the superior, what are you doing, that this is foolish what you're doing. You can say to your guru, your father is foolish what you're doing. No, you cannot. It was foolish what he was doing, but he was the king. You cannot tell the king you're foolish what you're doing. That will be not proper. So therefore it is mentioned tactfully. So one has to be straightforward, but at the same time one has to also see the etiquette. Yeah, yes, Maryada has to be there. should be not maryada ulangan. One should not cross the etiquette. So there is a proper etiquette how to talk with the superior. It is mentioned also in the scriptures one should not fight with the superior. One should respect mentally and vocally. One should always be speaking properly to the superior. So therefore he was speaking tactfully because he was the king and he was subordinate to the king. He was the secretary only. So he had to speak tactfully, that he didn't say directly what you do is foolish. But he was just indirectly, so tactfully he was telling him that actually it is not very good what is happening here. So that is the...
Case,
Huh?
not only in Sanjaya, in
Yes.
Bhīṣma can say,
Yes.
Dronacharya can correct him.
Yes, Bhīṣma Dev and Dronacharya, they had the right, and even they told Dhṛtarāṣṭra sometimes this is not right, but he was not listening. He was blind, not only materially but spiritually also. And they were telling him, but they were not listening. He was not listening to them. So the Dronacharya and the Bhīṣma Dev, so they were so the Gurujan. So they had the right to tell Dhṛtarāṣṭra, although he's the king. And then even then the Brahmanas, the Guru, because the king is in a high position, they are more strong and they can be more straightforward, but still they also have to have respect towards the king. Mutual respect has to be there. But then those who are inferior, like Sanjay, they have to be very careful what they say. Otherwise sometimes the king becomes very angry and then he's cutting off the head, or tells servant, you cut off his head. He's a nonsense. And because already it was seen he's blind, materially speaking, but spiritually speaking also, he was doing wrong things all the time. So then he has to be careful not to offend the king for his own life also. So therefore he was tactfully hinting to him about his thinking or his activities, or his policies, they were not very favorable. So he was tactfully explaining. So we have to act according to time, place and circumstances.
Then second,
Yes.
19, last verse. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity.
Yes.
This is, we say practically when we apply in our life, in our Vaishnava family, when we execute service, we are facing family problem. So I can wait to stop my service until I surrender fully. How can I act when I face the problem to execute my service? I don't know how much the degree I surrender. Until fully 100% surrender, I can wait, nothing to do any service.
No, you have to serve. We should always serve, and difficulties will be there. Even if one is surrendered, difficulties will be there. That is just the nature of the world. Even the pure devotees, they have to face many difficulties. But they are surrendered to Krishna, and then they will overcome the difficulties. So even if one is not yet fully surrendered, one has to do one's service, devotional service, and then actually become purified in consciousness. And then Krishna will also help us to overcome the difficulties. He will help us because then in purified consciousness, then we are able to more and more do actually what Krishna wants. And then it will be easier to overcome difficulties. But of course also, actually the more one is advancing, then many times it is also like this, then the difficulties will be greater. Just like in school, the small children, they have an exam which is, for them is difficult, but they are not so difficult for those who are in a higher grade. But then if you are higher grade, you have your exams and they are more difficult. So the more one is advancing, then the more also difficulties will be there, more difficult. But Krishna will always help. And if you are keeping engaged properly, surrendered to Krishna, then we can overcome all difficulties. So we should always do our service despite all difficulties. And even though we are not fully surrendered, but it doesn't matter. So difficulties will always be there, but we have to be engaged in devotional service despite all difficulties. And so difficulties actually are coming and going. So by being engaged in devotional service, then we will overcome all the difficulties. So we should never stop devotional service. Okay? Yes?
Thank you for the wonderful words. Prabhuji, I want to ask that, as in this question only, you told that the greater the child, the greater the exams. And this is understood, but one other phase we also listen. I can't connect, that's why I'm asking you. That in one phase we also understand that the stages we, the more we advance in bhakti, our karmas are, swiped away. We
Yes,
are getting
yes,
purified.
yes.
So, like we are getting purified, and then when we get purified, we don't have problems, right?
And now we have still the problems are there.
No, yes.
Yeah.
I can't connect.
Yeah,
The
yes.
statements are true.
Right.
And separately they are understood. But I can connect both of them, please.
Yes, yes. So you see, actually, the more we are engaged in devotional service, the more we become purified and dependent on Krishna. So then actually it will be easier to overcome the difficulties. But actually they become more and more difficult, the difficulties. But then you can still overcome them. The same thing like the student in the higher, even going to university, and then he has to do his PhD, which is difficult to, or for example CA, to crack the exams for the CA exam, not very difficult. But because he has learned so much and he has passed the previous exams, and if he's really dedicated, and if he's depending on Krishna, he can pass all the exams. Although they are very difficult, but he can pass. And then, for example, if you try to get a PhD, then usually also you have some. Not like in the beginning class, you have to attend all the classes, and then the marks will be there, the teacher is there always, telling you do this and that and explaining. But then when you go for the PhD in university, then you have your own study also, and the teacher is not always there to tell you what to learn and how to learn. Then you have to, you study yourself, and for the thesis, and then so it is still, it will be difficult, but because you have already practiced, you have a lot of experience and knowledge, and then there's a good chances that you will pass, although it is very difficult. But because you're already established and you have learned so much, and your intelligence is trained and you're mature, when you are grown up, then you're mature, then it will be relatively easier to pass the exam, although it is still very difficult, more difficult than before. So same in devotional service, the difficulties will be more and more, but because you have practiced in devotional service and you have knowledge, you have confidence, and you're depending on Krishna, then there's every chance that you can pass all the tests, even though they will be more and more difficult. Okay, is it?
So we can understand it like that. These are not a result of our karma.
No.
Result and tests are two different.
Right. These two things, one is karma and one is test. Yeah. Karma means due to our previous activities there's a result. There's the good karma and the bad karma. If you do good karma, you will get good result. If the bad karma is there, bad result. But as a devotee, when we surrender to Krishna, we are practically free from karma. Only a little reaction is there from previous karma, but we are relatively free. And the difficulties which are there, these are more tests than actually the result of our previous activities. These are just tests to, first of all, to purify our existence also, to see our determination, also then to set the example for others, that see how this devotee is so determined despite all difficulties. And also because it is the nature of this world that always difficulties are there. But if Krishna is in the center, then actually it becomes transcendental, then we are free from karma, when we surrender to Krishna. And the test, it is not as a result of karma, or very little. It is more the nature of this world, or it is the external energy of Krishna directly testing the devotee to see his determination, and then as purification also. And then if we are surrendered, then we can overcome all the difficulties by Krishna's mercy, but we have to endeavor sincerely and very hard. But then we can overcome also by Krishna's mercy. Okay?
One question.
Yes.
Can we come to know, like at my state of course, my student, so we are very little test. So, can we come to know, it's not in our hand, no, we can know what is test and what is karma. It's just our duty. We can just completely do our duties and
Yes.
be depend.
Yes, especially in the beginning of devotional life. So we don't know exactly if it is Krishna is testing us, if it is karma, or if it is just the nature of this world. We don't know exactly. But it doesn't matter. You just have to do it as your duty, and you just have to try to pass these different little difficulties or tests. It may be due to karma, it may be just because it is the nature of this material world, the difficulties will be there, or it may be Krishna's test. Sometimes it may not be clear what it is, but it doesn't matter. You just have to go through it. You have to engage in devotional service, no matter what. Okay?
One thing I wanted to ask. It is said that we should have all enthusiasm.
Yes.
Enthusiasm also comes from bhakti. And one thing, we say that we should improve each and every single activity of our bhakti slowly. Like,
Yes.
So how to understand, everything is clear, but how we should improve each and every step with clear
Intelligence.
and clear attentiveness.
Yes. Well, you see, that is actually, as a devotee, the devotee is very humble, and he will try his best, but then he will see a mature devotee actually is very humble, and he doesn't think that he's perfect, and he doesn't think that whatever I'm doing is perfect and complete, but he's humble, and he is understanding his insignificant position as the eternal servant of Krishna, and but he will try his best, but he will always try to see that he can improve in whatever he is doing. He will never feel that my chanting is perfect, my reading is perfect, my seva is perfect. Rather it is the opposite. He will think, I have to chant more, I have to chant better, I have to serve more, I have to serve better, I have to get more knowledge. I have some knowledge, but I need to know more about Krishna. And then I have to give this knowledge to others also, and let me understand the subject matter better and better, so I can explain to others also. So naturally devotee will feel very humble, and he will always feel that, although he is always engaged in devotional service, he always feels that I am insignificant and I should do more, I should do better. He is always in that mood. So that is actually natural. Whereas the devotee who is not so advanced, sometimes he becomes proud, and he thinks, I'm very good in what I'm doing fine, I'm okay, I'm not doing anything wrong. So, but the devotee is actually, a true devotee is always humble, and he will feel also that if I'm able to do something nice, that is the mercy of the Lord, that is the mercy of my spiritual master. And if something is not coming out nice, then he will think it is my misfortune, because I'm not able to fully surrender, therefore the things are not coming out nicely. Or he will think it is, in this material world the difficulties are there, and so sometimes you are not successful. But despite that fact, that the things are not working out nicely, let me just continue to the best of my ability. So we always should try to improve, we should try to do everything nicely, and we should try to improve our chanting and our service, try to do everything very nicely. If we are worshipping the deities, the place should be clean, and we should have the best things to offer to Krishna, best rice, good fruits, good vegetables, everything we should try to do first class. We should try, and we should never think I'm perfect and complete. But we should always think I can do better, I can do more. Okay?
The pride can only be cut through if we are depending on spiritual master, if we seeing it as the mercy of spiritual master.
Yes.
Whenever we progress a little, pride is always there.
Yeah, that might be there, yes, yes. But we have to remember, if you are successful, it is the mercy of the spiritual master. Yes. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, we stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki.